Arif, welcome to Mitiga Mic.
Thanks for having me.
So as we roll into this conversation, I'd like to just sort of kick things off with who the heck are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Arif Khan. I've been with Mitiga for about 3 years. I've had an exciting journey here since I started, first as an individual contributor, helping on the go-to-market sales engineering side. Since then, I came to lead the managed services, and what that includes is the incident response, threat hunting, and now newly managed service of our CDR product for our customers, where we triage the detections for them and leave the expertise to my team members.
Awesome. Awesome. And what I really like about your team and sort of the company as a whole is when I think about Mitiga Labs, it's really made up of a couple components, and there's you and your team, and then there's the research side, but they're not like these two completely bifurcated groups that don't talk to each other and there's no collaboration. I like how, while the missions are quite different, there's a lot of collaboration in how you approach what you do and the labs overall.
Yeah, we come with different perspectives, right? One can think about it if you had an internal organization, a purple team. We come with different perspectives, different experiences. So we're on the response side, the defensive side, the security operations side. And so what we do is from the field, from the perspective of our customers, from incident response, we've assisted in how can we contribute to our cloud attack scenario library. And that gives us more knowledge to create detections, but also take some of those hypotheses in the field, some of those real scenarios in the field, and create threat hunting engagements for our customers. For example, an event threat hunt, which we deliver for our customers, can be, yes, based on content from other publicly disclosed incidents, but it can also be based on hypotheses, scenarios, very isolated to our customers that might be applicable to different verticals and horizontals. So we come with that perspective. Research obviously comes with theirs, poking at various services, thinking about proactive means, attacking actual cloud service providers in the lab, of course. But I think we work very well together, especially when you have global perspectives.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and certainly the proof's in the pudding. And I've met with lots of our customers, and they couldn't be more excited about the approach. Well, let's go ahead and roll it back a little bit. Tell me about, what's your origin story? How'd you get started in all this, and what's the path you took that led you to Mitiga?
Yeah. So when I was back in college, we could call it, right, undergrad, we all wanted to work in the field, make a lot of money, and that to me was the finance sector.
Okay.
So I came to the industry and worked in technology support for the finance field. Did a few years there, but it gets a little boring. And so I kept jumping in the finance a couple of times, and then I realized this is not fun. Obviously, back then, cybersecurity was not a field where you thought would be exciting. It wasn't really in demand. There was obviously security issues, but it wasn't cutting edge at the moment. And back when I was a teenager, I certainly uh, played around in the world of, IRC, Internet Relay Chat, bulletin boards, and all the other things you want to play around with when you're a teenager. Eventually, I figured as I advanced my career, I said, all right, NYU has a cybersecurity master's program, went back to school. At the same time, got an opportunity to work at Symantec in their cloud division. So did that for a few years while I completed my master's. Um, at the conclusion of my master's, came into a great opportunity to work with Mandiant. Wasn't aware of the incident response world, forensics, or any of that, but they gave me a chance. And look, that was a major contribution to getting my perspective of the real cybersecurity problems we have, what's behind closed doors, what's brushed under the carpet sometimes. And so I did a good amount of time there, made a lot of friends, but I wanted to do something different because nobody was always making it drastic changes to their environment, even after responding to an incident, right?
Yeah.
So we were writing 100-page reports, and sometimes we would go in and do an offensive exercise and had the same problem from last year. So wanted to make a difference, and that's when I tried to poke around in the startup world. So jumped to a startup out of Silicon Valley, which got acquired by F5. And then I said, let me try the Israeli startup scene. So I worked at Pantera,
Mhm.
which was automated um, cyber offensive attacks
Mhm.
and helping customers validate their defenses. And eventually I said, let me get to the cloud because the world is transitioning, and we need to get ahead of that risk. I came across Mitiga, which was doing something cool, which was being proactive about incident response, your incident readiness in the cloud, and collecting everything to the forensic data lake, which is pretty powerful when you come to looking for a risk or a detection or an incident. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where I am.
Oh, that's awesome. What an amazing journey. And it's really interesting. I meet so many people in the field that come from, different areas, maybe different philosophy majors, a lot of computer science majors, but math, physics, all sorts of different academic backgrounds and pursuits. And like you said, there was this idea in your head that, hey, I wanted to be around finance. That's where the money is, which I think is a big motivator for a lot of people, especially while they're in college. But it's funny, a lot of folks that I've talked to kind of started in like tech support, just general tech support, doing desktop support, things like that. And another gentleman that I know, really good friends with, just absolutely brilliant. He was telling me he was working in tech support and he knew he had to do something different when he was being called. And this was like 20 years ago, but he would be called in to help this executive. And she goes, I really want my cursor on my mouse to turn into a dinosaur when I double click on something. And I don't know if you probably remember there was all these packages to make
Yeah,
your mouse.
yeah.
And he's like, this is like the most ridiculous thing in the world. What am I doing here? But yeah, it's definitely a good motivator because you know how bad it can be, and you're like, okay, let's switch gears.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think we all, I did do a little short period of time where I was commuting almost 3 hours for my technical support
oof,
job. I was in New York, the Bronx. I was
yeah,
going all the way down to Jersey, and it was great getting the perspective of being support for customers, because what it gave me the perspective of is treat the people that call in the same way I want to be treated when I
yeah,
call in. And I think that was some of the skills I've still applied to date and even applied to my team members is, you know, no matter how difficult something might be, communications is key. And so being sympathetic to everyone's situation when it comes to being defensive, right? Whether
yeah.
they're in a state of incident response and there's all this other pressure, or they're just trying to validate things. So I think there's an emotional connection when we provide our managed service.
Yeah. Well, it's such a specialized role, right? I mean, your team is by definition customer facing, right? You're dealing
Yeah,
with complex things and oftentimes you're working with people on a day that's not a very good day for them, right?
yeah,
If something's happening, so you got to take that into perspective. So that's great. It takes a unique individual and a unique team to pull that off.
yeah,
Now you mentioned something earlier too about the cloud and how you kind of saw that coming and you're like, well, this is something I want to get in front of. I want to be part of this movement. And certainly AI is another next big thing, if you will. And I'm wondering, with all the skills that you and your team bring together, sort of all this, institutional knowledge and processes, and how you leverage that. AI is a big part of Mitiga. How does that work into your process and your flow, and just how you address, you know, the all the issues and customer needs that you're addressing today?
yeah. Since I've been in cyber, there's always that next. I'll call it buzzword, but I think AI has been one of those that has proven a valuable asset. I call it a team member.
Mm,
And so what it does is it helps us from the security operations perspective speed up our ability to help customers. And so what we're doing in the first iteration of our Helios AI is basically we get a detection. What would be some straightforward triage questions you're always asking yourself, and to reduce the time to even have to deal with that. And so when we get the detection, we take advantage of AI. Eventually, obviously, the goal is to be a bit more autonomous and trustworthy of the AI, but I think we're still in the early stages of building that trust. But I think working in parallel together, we are reducing the time, in the world of mean time to detection, mean time to
Yeah.
respond, any of those MTT terms. But the AI is one of those things I've seen as being one of those, um, leaning on the valuable side of the buzzwords lately, um, where some of the old legacy is still kind of gimmicky.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. It's interesting. I talk about things like anomaly detection, pattern discovery, volumetric analysis, temporal analysis. And the reason I still about those things with customers is, well, they still work and they're still applicable and we still
Yep.
leverage them. And they might not have the sexy AI term, but there's still value there, right? And I look at people like you and your team with all these, hard-earned skills, right, over decades of doing incident response. And to me, AI is really a way to augment that. It's a way to make those early detection type capabilities better. It's a way to make your team better. And it's I was watching the movie Aliens, the old one. I think it was from like the mid '90s. And remember, I don't know if you remember the scene, but where Ripley's got this like exoskeleton on her. It's kind of like a forklift, but you wear it and she's moving around. And I was like, that's kind of what AI is like, right? It's to augment your own abilities.
Yeah.
It's to augment your intuition. It's not I mean, I don't know if I ever see it as a pure replacement, and I don't think that's where the industry is going, at least in the near term. But man, it's a great tool to augment, right? And just kind of save time, and like you said, the MTTs, and really kind of get in front of things, and maybe even occasionally catch something that's a little bit suspicious that might have, passed even the most seasoned analyst or something like that, and say, hey, take a look at this little thing, and kind of gives you another sort of path to go down. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I mean, look at the world today, groups AI based on LLM, but this has been around a long time, right? When the world of EDR came out and they said we have advanced machine learning,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a similar concept. Machine learning, the ability to have antivirus not give you that false positive all the time took time. The antivirus engine had to learn. The same thing with AI. AI will have to learn. The cloud is more tricky than traditional Windows-based networks because the logs are all over the place, the context is all over the place. Not all SaaS is created equal, and so it becomes a little bit trickier. But AI helps us speed things up. If you tell it, "Hey, Salesforce logs are like this, interpreted like this. Guard duty logs are like this, interpreted like this." At least by the time we're looking at detections for the day, we have all, triage questions answered. So I think we're going to be partners for a while.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, there might be outliers industry trying to automate everything, but I think we're a little bit away from all that. It is something we augment our operations with.
Yeah. It's funny. If this was probably like 5, maybe 6 years ago, and I was at DEF CON, and I saw this T-shirt, and I still remember it because it just made me laugh. It said, "If somebody says it's machine learning, it's probably written in Python. If they say it's AI, it's probably
Yeah,
written in PowerPoint." So that was
yeah,
kind of the
yeah.
kind of the net. We've come a long way, of course, in a few
Yeah,
years,
I
but
joke around with it with like, when I submit receipts with the those apps, and it says AI behind the scenes. I figured there's somebody else really there working a 24/7 shift, looking at my receipt and typing it out. Back in the day. Now maybe not, but that's how I interpreted it back then.
Oh God, yeah. If anything in our industry has really matured, well, it's expenses. I remember the old days. I was with Bell Labs and I was living in Brazil, and I was traveling a lot internationally. So I'd have expense reports with like 5, 6 different currencies on them,
Oh,
and I had to tape them to a piece of paper. I had to type it into a spreadsheet and print it, put it in a FedEx envelope and mail it back.
oh
And
gosh.
maybe in like 6 months I'd get reimbursed for this stuff. It was
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah,
It was just nuts. But
yeah.
you know what I was hoping you could do, and of course in a very anonymized way. And if let me know. But I'd love to hear a couple of like standout stories of incidents that you've come across or ways that you've been able to help a customer out of a jam or something that maybe a couple that stand out in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the latest in the scene is all about identity. I did it recently in a LinkedIn post. I've assumed for a long time my identity's been stolen, but just nobody wants to be me at that point in time.
Okay.
And this year, I had the opportunity of someone filing my taxes for me.
Oh,
But I caught
nice.
it in time because I filed a couple of days later. I called everyone. But long story short, all our stuff is out there. But when it comes to credentials, the attackers are taking advantage of just buying them, right? And then just logging in. So we're seeing a lot of that where um, attackers are logging in, and we take advantage of our detection engine, especially the anomaly based part of it. Because we have this volume of data in the forensic data lake, we know what's normal. We
Yeah.
know this person logs in from the United States, this user agent, this device ID. So in the past few weeks, we're seeing a lot of deviations, logins from South Africa using Linux, logins from or attempted logins from Russia. The good thing is our customers have conditional access policies in place that is preventing some of this. But the risk here is if the attacker knows the credential is good, they could do a more targeted attack with an attacker in the middle of your browser and steal your session token. That sometimes works around the defenses you might have in place.
Yeah.
And so the secondary layer of detection then is should someone be accessing an application. So part of our detection engine, let's use Okta as an example. A lot of the time somebody gets into Okta can pivot to other applications, or it's applications they should have access to, but they're doing something different. I'll call it exfiltrating, but downloading data in mass.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a lot of that as well, especially downloads from either Google Workspace that somebody should not be making, or around Salesforce that somebody should not be making. And so those are gaps, especially in the standard detection tools, because nobody really considered them or even had the opportunity to build the coverage. And so that's what Mitiga does well, because we focus on those SaaS that are sensitive with crown jewels, critical assets, and provide you that full scope. All right, the identity you have, maybe Defender in place, or some other tool, but there's this other part of the attack chain you might not have anything. And so it might look normal, but because we have this engine and the forensic data lake, we can find some of these interesting things. And that's what we're seeing lately in the world of detections.
Yeah. No, that's amazing to me. And one of the things that I love about our approach is the fact that so a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, we've got Amazon logs," which doesn't mean anything. And anybody that does any type of analysis knows, oh, so maybe you mean CloudTrail, maybe, but there's Meta and there's VPC and Elastic Kubernetes and load balancer. There's a million other things that you want to be able to pull in, and they're all different, right? And we were talking about AI before. A number of security companies say they do AI on this type of data, but they're really just doing it on alerts. Doing it on alerts is far different than doing it on logs. Not like
Yeah.
alerts are bad. We integrate with CrowdStrike and Carbon Black and all the other guys too, and we get their alerts, especially for workload monitoring, right? But getting log data is kind of where it's at and doing that level of analysis. So when you're looking across this data, what always amazes me is it's not like you're looking at an IPS or firewall. You're looking across multi-cloud. You're looking across multiple identity, Okta, Jump, all these other flavors, and then all the SaaS stuff as well. And I know it's complicated because I know a lot of engineers that write the code to generate logging, they don't like doing this. They drew the short straw. And they were kind of told, okay, man, you got to go ahead and create some login. They're like, I don't know what I want to do here. And the philosophies are different and what
Yeah.
they do. And sometimes it's just, and there's a lot to glue together. And kudos to our team and you and the researchers and everybody else for staying on that. But the level of complexity, I think, doing analysis on cloud data far outweighs the level of complexity that you see on-prem. And a lot of that, to be quite fair, is just maturity level. Cloud's a lot newer, right? And there's a new SaaS application being spun up, every 2 seconds or something like that, I'm sure. I don't have that statistic in front of me, but I'm guessing it's accurate. Every 2 seconds. Let's
Yeah.
go for that.
Especially now. Yeah.
So, I mean, and we'll be very honest, some of them have awful logging, right? And some of them only have logging if you have enterprise, and some of them they only send logs once a day. I mean, there's all these little isms that you got to do. So your team's ability to get through that is amazing. But one of the things that I really love is the readiness. Like a customer's turned up, you're getting their log data in, and you're saying, hey, based on your readiness score, man, you got to really turn DNS logs on. I know it's voluminous, but it's not like the old days where you send it to a SIM, right? We're doing our distributed data lake, and this is what you're missing. Maybe it's Tor exit nodes, maybe it's botnets, maybe there's other things you're missing, but you got to turn on that thing. And I think helping prepare them, right, getting that optimization, that's so important. And I just think it's overlooked by so many companies. They're just doing a thing, but they're not helping the customer kind of up level their infrastructure, their readiness to deal with this.
Yeah. One of the first lessons we learned, especially just doing instant response, is customers didn't have CloudTrail for the relevant accounts. And so what we did is we created a product, a service, where as part of the customer journey, once they onboard the data with the CSPs, we will evaluate, do they have the best logs available for investigation if there was a breach. And so let's take the world of AWS, because that's one of the more early and more mature compared to the CSPs, is CloudTrail. Do they have the right CloudTrail logs in all the locations and all going to a central location? If not, this is the most prioritized action. You need at least bare minimum CloudTrail.
Yeah.
And then the next step is, okay, VPC flow logs. That's important for seeing traffic, egress, ingress, ports, and all this. But there's a catch. There's a cost associated just by turning it on and not even storage. So some customers are privileged enough to turn everything on, and we'll collect all that and put it into our data lake and have it available. Some don't have that luxury. And so then what we do is, okay, let's prioritize your VPCs. Where's the crown jewels, critical assets? Let's turn those on for now. And so that gives them some level of safety while they keep fighting that battle internally for more budget. And that works. But if you don't know what you have being generated, you're never going to be able to investigate. Setting aside the complexity of logs, there's been research public where one simple action in AWS generates 100 events in CloudTrail. And so there's a lot of complexities in getting the story compared to a Windows event where you have a successful SMB login. Event ID XYZ, easy enough. But CloudTrail, you have to look at a lot of things. And because of our approach with code as forensics, we can automate some of that, and even now, even more with AI.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I had a call 2 days ago with a financial services customer. We were talking about CloudTrail and what is and what isn't included in CloudTrail. And there's a dozen other and more actually of other places you can get log sources just from AWS, but everybody knows CloudTrail. And I said, well, one of the things that you don't have access to is, let's say you have a file and it's sitting in an S3 bucket. If you want to know who accessed it, when they accessed it, how they accessed it, what they did when they accessed it, guess what? None of that's in CloudTrail, zero. And that's, if you think about forensics like on-prem, you usually like to know who, when, how, and what. Those are kind of table stakes. And it's not because CloudTrail's bad. It has a lot of good data, but I think that's like in the data access log or something like that. That's got
it's on the S3 object level. And that's another check we do. Do they have the S3 object level? Yes, there's a cost associated. Yeah. And this applies to SaaS too. These SaaS providers have different subscription levels where you get more logs. It's a challenge because you don't have the luxury of just going to your Windows logs and saying, give me successful, give me failed logins. You have to pay more to even have it generated, and it's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, Arif, this has been fantastic. Such great knowledge that you've been sharing. If you had one or two pieces of advice to give any of our listeners in regards to just some things that they can do to improve their cloud security posture. What's after all your years of working in here, what are some of the like low hanging fruit things that would certainly help?
Yeah, I think tabletop exercises are important because you want to make sure everyone is ready. So thinking of scenarios that affect your business, the risks that affect your business, and going through simulations, right? Whether you use tools to simulate attacks or just sitting around a table or a team's room and just working through it. I think
Yeah.
that's the important part. The next is just making sure not everything is going to come in as a high or critical detection. The informationals and lows are important as well. So setting aside time to review those bi-weekly, monthly, because a lot of the times we see DevOps administrative changes in the cloud. So making sure they're properly tracked via change management.
Mm.
If somebody made something public, you'll get a detection, but you won't get a detection for somebody going back or reverting. So making sure that loop is always closed, because all it takes is one accident of you left a misconfigured bucket out there and somebody came in, stole data or whatever. So just making sure you're always closing the loop. And again, feedback. As you're going through various tools you have in your security stack, making sure you're talking to the vendor, getting the best customer success possible, because you're all partners, and just making sure you're working together to advance the defense. We're fighting a war, which is attacks on our cloud, on our infrastructure, on our solutions. And so we have to partner together to get through it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I really like how it's not just the technology, it's the talent, it's the techniques, and it's the technology all working in use, and one without the other doesn't really
Yep,
get you anything.
sure.
Well, Arif, thanks so much for being part of the Mitiga Mic podcast. We really appreciate it, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.